Well, we have to do the newspaper. So we have a couple of the newspapers in the studio. Now we have to look at probe of 3 EC chiefs begins, and it's on the front page of the Daily Graphic. That's it. And well, let's go straight away to the newspapers. And so we have the process to ascertain the veracity or otherwise of the allegations leveled against the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Charlotte Osei, and her two deputies, Mr. Amadou Sule and Mrs. Georgina Opoku-Amankwa, took form yesterday when the committee set up to investigate the allegations met the 3 EC officials for the first time. And we know that the 5-member committee who sat in camera began work after the Chief Justice, Mrs. Justice Ofaya Kufo, had established a prima facie case against Mrs. Osei, Mr. Sule, as well as Mrs. Opoku-Amankwa. And it means that the Chief Justice, on the face value of the allegations, has found the need for the issues to be probed further for officials of the EC to respond accordingly. So it takes an interesting twist. We'll discuss this thoroughly this morning. We'd like to have some views also on this from some legal practitioners, what it ultimately means and what we should be expecting at the end of the proceedings of the committee. But other stories also occupying the front page of the Daily Graphic. We have SDGs. We're talking about sustainable development goals to invest in citizens, and that story is also on the front page of the Daily Graphic. It's on page 20, and if you go to page 20, the story is captured adequately, and I believe that the president is also championing this, and this has been all over social media as well as the mainstream media. It says President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has urged African leaders to use the Sustainable Development Goals as an opportunity to invest in their people. He said the implementation of the SDGs would ensure that Africans build a better life, stressing that Africans need to make sure that no group of persons has more to gain from the successful implementation of the SDGs than the African themselves. He was addressing the Africa Roundtable on the UN SDGs in Accra on Monday, and the president also said that despite the expected gains, there were justifiably pressing demands to address issues of widespread unemployment in the African region and the sense of hopelessness that the future compels large numbers of African youth to travel across the sub-Saharan deserts and traverse perilous oceans. And we're talking about the Mediterranean mainly, in search of a better life in the developed West. Charlie, going through all that perilous journey through the deserts is one of the most emotional things people can ever go through, because they really don't know what's there until they get to meet the situation as they traverse that vast desert land. But let's look at other stories also on the front page of the Daily Graphic. We have customs impounds 300 vehicles. Owners evaded duties, we're told, and the vehicles are well displayed on the front page of the Daily Graphic. And basically, it's about the vehicles that have been impounded following their arrest or seizure by officials at the Kotoka International Airport. We also have those coming in, and they range from Range Rovers, the one that we all last about, Range Rovers, Infinities, Mercedes-Benz in different classes. For example, there's even a Ferrari 360, a Toyota Land Cruiser V8, BMWs, Audis, Tundras, Toyota Prados, Toyota RAV4s, Toyota Camrys, and the other Sequoias, Benz Sprinters, and Toyota Corollas, if you come down to the normal ones. So there's a story on page 17 of the Daily Graphic, though. It says that, look, living conditions of Ghanaians not improved, and this one is according to a survey by the Institute of Economic Affairs, and it says the livelihoods or the living conditions of Ghanaians declined apparently marginally between 2014 and 2015, and this according to a survey conducted by the IEA, and those whose living conditions declined constituted about 1/3 of the population, with majority of them living in urban Accra, peri-urban Accra, rural Accra, Volta, Eastern, Upper East, and Upper West regions. So those in Accra, conditions have gotten worse. I mean, basically, that's what it means. Yeah. Charlie. Okay, the report also draws on the third IEA Socio-Economic and Governance Survey, which was carried out in November and December 2015. Okay, and there's also an aspect of the report that cites that, look, according to the report, females were better off than males, with the proportion of females who had good living conditions increasing from 21.7% to 23%, while the proportion of males who reported good living conditions declined from 27.7% to 22% between 2014 and 2015. More cash. More cash. And the issues about access to safe drinking water, and there were other indicators on education, schooling expenses, general public services, and food security. So, look, you can get a lot more on this story. You go to the back page of the daily graphic. It talks about Forestry Commission engaging 7,000 farmers to reforest depleted forests. That's a good one. And you have a picture there of Mr. Kojo Usefriye, known to many of us as Sir John in the political circles. He's also the boss of the Forestry Commission of Ghana. So we have a lot more to discuss. Okay, so we'll have a lot more to talk about. But let's look at the Ghanaian Times. On the front page of the Ghanaian Times, we have Ghana rallies support for SDGs at high-level meeting in Accra. And a story also featured on the daily graphics is also featured here. Johnson & Johnson others collaborate to fight HIV/AIDS. Chief Justice begins probe of EC boss, 2 others. And Goldfields planning to sack workers according to Mine Workers Union. And the story is on page 15 of the paper. And you get to that story and it reads that apparently the Ghana Mine Workers Union has raised red flags over attempts by Goldfields Ghana Limited, the Takwa mine, to sack over 17,000 workers. And we know that the mining giant is currently embarking on a hostile business decision, Christian contract mining, which will allow it to sack hundreds of workers by next week. According to the mine workers, Goldfields is deliberately advancing the false assertion that its current life of mine, that's the LOM, stands between 5 to 6 years and therefore cannot purchase new mining fleet considering the short payback period. Understood. 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 We go to the back page of the paper. Health expert brainstorm in Accra and work on solar park begins next year. Okay. Let's go to the Daily Guide newspaper. We have the Daily Guide. Front page, EC bosses probe begins. 3 weeks to file statement. And you have a picture there with all the protagonists in there. Charlotte Rosé, Amadou Sile and Georgina Opukwa Mankwa with their lawyers respectively. Let us change Africa's story, Nana. VRA Buipa face merger and story about merger, etc. We know this has been in the news on page. Let's go to page 6 and see whether we can get that story quickly. But in the meantime, though, please get interactive on Facebook, JoyNews on TV with all the stories you've been hearing and the things we've been discussing. And then let us also hear from you through our Twitter handle at JoyNews on TV. And that's the story. The story says that we have a lot more to talk about as far as we are concerned about VRA considering mergers, and it says a committee established by government to consider the merger of the Volta River Authority and the Bui Power Authority is expected to meet today in Accra. The move is to consolidate efforts in the country's hydropower generation sector. Fred Owari, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Bui Power Authority, disclosed this at a media engagement in Accra, saying that it is a government decision and the government will be advised by the committee as to how to go about the current merger proceedings. Mr. Owari said that since the inauguration of the Bui generating station in December 2013, 220 megawatts of power had been generated daily. That's a good one. Great power. Yeah. And the Bui station has 3 generating units, he's quoted, with each having a capacity of generating 133 megawatts of power and a mini plant of 4 megawatts, totaling 400 megawatts if it was generating a full capacity. So please. You have to get more on the story. Great insight, great knowledge for you. Gofield to lay off 1,700 workers. Okay. The Daily Guide said, the Daily Graph, okay. It says 17, 16, 15. The Ghanaian Times said 17,000. Daily Guide says 1,700. Okay. There's a news one pull out, but let's move on. We look at the Daily Dispatch newspaper. For discharging the president, for disgracing the presidency, presidential staffer will be punished, according to the minister. And the story is on the back page of the paper. It says Works and Housing Minister Samuel Atachian has vowed to punish presidential staffer who allegedly dehumanized a government worker in the name of the presidency. The official, whose name was given as Grace, allegedly led soldiers to ransack the home of a staff of the Accountant General's Department, identified as Abdullah Amin. And MajorOnline.com learnt that she was joined in the raid by two others whose names were only given as Araba and Kluche. They were convinced the employee is an illegal occupant of the building. And the latest raid apparently happened last week, Tuesday dawn, when some 7 military officers stormed his house. They destroyed everything that I have. He's been quoted. I asked them why they were doing that, and they could not provide any evidence except that they were coming from the Flagstaff House. Mr. Amin, according to the paper, told JoyNews. So, quoting our paper. On the back page also we have of the Daily Guide. It's been 5 years since Honorable David Lamptey passed on. May he so rest in peace. He's a great man, great philanthropist, great entrepreneur, great politician. And may he so rest in peace. We have the final newspaper. It has on the front page, Bui Dam generates $335.7 million US. Kaya, ayakata. Great money. Authority unveils ambitious renewable energy plan. That story is on page 2 of the paper. Where Africa has more to gain from successful implementation of SDGs. President Akufo-Addo. Story on page 8. Ghana to commence decontamination of import in January 2018. Ghana lost about 8 billion Ghana cedis to infractions in 2016. What kind of infractions? Let's look at page 4 of the paper. Infractions nowadays, is it embezzlement and all that? It says that the Auditor General has got to do with money, definitely. The Auditor General has said that the nation lost about 8 billion Ghana cedis to infractions in the year 2016 alone, and this is mainly due to systemic weaknesses. And the Attorney General, or the Auditor General, Daniel Domelevo, said the money is irrecoverable because they were lost due to internal control weaknesses and not cash irregularities. Okay, so because of poor filing of financial statements and auditing processes, and you know the way we use recovery monies, etc., or perhaps accounting for money spent, etc., there was a loss in the expenditure in the state system of 80 billion Ghana cedis. You know that some chopped, some to just not accounted for due to poor accounting practices, etc. That's what it means. What does it mean? Okay. So Africa has more to gain from successful implementation of SDGs, as Sustainable Development Goals, and this one is coming from our own President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Right. 4 in 10 Ghanaians want to migrate. It's according to a report. And the story is on page 5. 4 in 10 Ghanaians. Oh, we're only about 3 here. I'm sure 1, 2, 3. We have 7 more at the back. Fred Portofe is our lead director. I'm sure he wants to migrate. Onya US or Bekoroff. As for my lead producer, Derek Akosam, Onya UK or Beko. Life is hard, but Derek, the way his body structure, needs to go to Sudan, so he will trim. Because that place, food, hunger, all those things will affect him, so he trims. But the story is on page 5 of the paper, and it's captured as saying that apparently Findings of the Afrobarometer survey have revealed that at least 4 in 10 Ghanaians have considered migrating, and however, only a few have taken steps to leave. Derek wants to go, but Charlie, JoyNews the end thereof. He wants to stay. The study also reveals that most of the potential immigrants are in search of more favorable economic prospects in a more suitable land. It just means that Derek Okosan doesn't want to go scrap bathroom, be packing, things in a Nike shop in the UK or something. He wants to still work as a journalist in, US. And then according to the report, majority of the people prefer to live outside Africa. Derek and Potiphar, they want to live in UK, Australia, with North America and Europe being the most preferred destinations. But they want to work and go and live like the way, some journalism. Or want to work in a corporate institutions in a brochure. Okay. Benis Abubedu too wants to go and live in the UK. I forgot about that one. Business and Financial Times is the next paper we're looking at. And so we have the lead story. Unibank secures over 700 million Ghana cedis investment to shore up capital. Oh, the banks are announcing. Omnibank says, Unibank says this. And because we know that, look, at close of 2018 and 19, the Bank of Ghana is saying that if you don't have a capitalization of 400 million Ghana cedis, you're out of the banking system. So they're all bringing these things up and saying that, Charlie, we've secured funding or capitalization, etc. And the story is on page 3 of the paper. Unibank, if you're a customer of Unibank, you should be happy then. You will keep your bank. It says Unibank has secured over 700 million Ghana cedis of fresh capital injection to position itself as one of the earliest banks to meet the central bank's increased stated capital requirements. A source close to the deal has told the Business and Financial Times, and in a move that is expected to repose some much needed confidence in local banks. The fresh capital coming from a financial consortium led by Belstar Capital, a 10-key project finance and implementation institution. According to the source, we'll see the bank's capital, including income surplus, reach almost 1 billion Ghana cedis, positioning it as one of the most dominant players in the market. Okay, if you ask me, I want the banks to trim. Well, a few of the banks so that we can make good choices. Competition is good, man. Okay, so we have other stories. Bui plants never a white elephant, according to the Chief Executive Fred Owari, who was one time first National Vice Chair of the NPP. And then we also have African government urged to own healthcare financing. And on the back page, though, we have Access Bank's W Initiative wins another global award, and Johnson & Johnson unites with key local organizations to fight HIV/AIDS. That's a good one by Johnson & Johnson. And apparently, Emirates appoints new country manager, and the country manager is Miss Kathy Wesley. Wow. Right. Pure British name. All right. But we have other macroeconomic targets. Overall GDP growth rate of 6.8, non-oil growth rate of 5.4. Look, if you're interested in goes inflation by October was 11.6. Policy rate 20%. That's good info. Business and Financial Times. Let's look at the last paper before we go, and it definitely has to be the Today newspaper. Auditor General, it just says AG. I got taken by event because I've seen Daniel Domelevo. And so it says Auditor General chases defaulters, and that's on page 3 of the paper. Let's go to page 3 and see what the paper says. And it basically reads, Auditor General is on the tail of some 62 organizations for receiving payment from the state with no available documentation covering them. So if you have documentation, go and prove that I received the payment, but this is the documentation I received from the said state institution to cover it. So it had subsequently surcharged the companies involved in the malfeasance, and that's what the story is. There's 62 organizations, but one or two organizations. It's not been published here, but also on the front page of the Today newspaper. Ayariga Japs Nana over homosexuality comments. 4 men gunned down at Nanjong. And then we have on Nanyong, or it depends how you want to pronounce it. Tension in Takwa Goldfields over moves to lay off 1,700 staff. This thing, He's raising eyebrows. As in. All right, so please know that we're coming to you live from digital address 0993341 live at Kokumemle Live in Accra. But let's look at the online portal. So we have to go to myjoyonline.com and quickly we'll try and peruse or scrutinize what is published there. Meet the youngest female commander of a Boeing 777. Divya holds the highest position with Air India. Namaste. With a combination of a childhood dream of flying the skies. Charlie, Indian women are beautiful. Even added to that is that she's a pilot. Wow. New York explosion. Man detonates bomb in attempted terrorist attack. Charlie, America. Now, Speaker under fire over controversial Israel comment. APAC demands explanation. And the minority in Parliament has heavily descended on the Speaker of Parliament for backing a decision by the U.S. to relocate its embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. We know the government had come out to dissociate itself from the statement. Said the statement by the Speaker were his own individual statement, not representing the views of the Republic of Ghana or anywhere. And we know that there have been protests in the Gulf regions, the Middle East, about a decision by Donald Trump to recognize Jerusalem ultimately, as a capital of Israel. Also making the decision known that the embassy of the United States in Israel will be moved from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Donald Trump. What more can you say about him? He likes causing controversy, but really, we're told the decision to move it has always been on the books of many a presidential candidate and ultimately a president of the United States of America. Now, let's go to the next story. Look at, this here. Derek Akosam, Fred Portefe. Derek Akosam, Fred Portefe. We also have Fred Smith and Benis Abubeidu. They are the 4 in 10 Ghanaians you meet on the streets who want to seek greener pastures abroad. And this one is coming from the Afro Barometer. It's a survey conducted by the CDD Ghana. But they said that only 1 or 2 have decided to make the move out of the 4. But Charlie, we have Auditor General. Ghana lost about 8 billion Ghana cedis to infractions in 2016. And then building the ark at a breakfast table. It's an article. Please go take a look at that. Okay, bear with us. Free SHS problems will be addressed. Mustafa Hamid is the Minister of Information. We'll tell you concretely a lot more about that. But the Kumasi shoe factory has not been doing too well, even though they've manufactured thousands of boots, never been absorbed by the off-takers. We're talking about the security services that had promised to do that. And so the managing director, who is acting, general manager of the Kumasi shoe factory, has dissented from the claims by the defense minister, Dominic Nito, who's been speaking lately from the last week, blaming it for the deplorable state of the company. And he said that, look, the defense minister, you're not being right with the truth. You're not be telling Ghanaians what the truth is. NDC got power plants. MPP buys the fuel. Government takes credit for stability. Government has claimed credit for stable power supply of power, a position likely to trigger opposition uproar in the credit-taking industry of politicians. Well, governance is a continuum. So, Charlie, let's scroll up and see whether we can get some interesting stories also to take a look. Oh, more. We're told that my rapist is now a deputy minister. Let's go up. Chinese rooftopper films his own death during a skyscraper stunt. Okay. Mom kept HIV a secret and her whole family tested positive. Wow. Go up. So we have our videos there. Just in case you don't know where to locate us on YouTube, please go search for the channel Major Online TV. And you have, let's go to City FM Online quickly. and see whether we can get some stories there. It's there. Prepaid system errors resolved according to the ECG, Electricity Company of Ghana. When you have a monopoly, that's what happens usually. It should be a competitive monopoly, not the one that's without competition. Really. Charlotte will say 2 deputies to face committee in corruption. They're actually facing the committee already. And then we have a next story. It says Nitawo lied. He was briefed on Kumasi Shoe Factory, according to the managers. Dominic Nitawo is the defense minister, big mind. Last week he was in the news about John Mahama and the lands, etc. Now this week, people are back at him and saying, Charlie, on kanokre. So we have Apia Stadium alleges arson in fire incident at his home. And look, the story I watched on social media. I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but if it's because of politics, Charlie, we don't have to get there. Burning people's cars and tires. We'll get to the next time killing people. We shouldn't get there. Politics should be more about unity, etc. You can have your differences. Kuntunse residents to sue EPA in 14 days over illegal factory. And apparently lawyers for residents, and this will be a class action of residents of Kuntunse in the Ghana West municipality, have threatened to sue the EPA, etc. over a sighting of a factory around the place. Kuntunse, is that not where Mama also Abuaje lives? And residents of Kuntunse, including Mamavi also Abuaje, and my operations manager, engineer Kwejo, say they are planning to sue the EPA. Class action. Kofodia sector students died from suspected meningitis, according to health director. Yeah, meningitis. Cool students, yo. So we have to be careful. Most African leaders are not thinkers. Kote Jani. Yo. So we have other stories there. But let's go to the Africa page of the BBC if we can. Africa page. EU government complicit in Libya abuse. Human rights group Amnesty says the EU is actively supporting authorities who work with gangs to abuse migrants, etc. Mohammed Salah, who is an Egyptian, helped the Egyptians trash the Black Stars, and ultimately they qualified to the World Cup in Russia. He's been named the BBC African Player of the Year. And guess what? He speaks apparently good English too. Just imagine our footballers speak Fubisa. I don't mind. Egypt and Liverpool forward Mohamed Salah is voted the BBC African Player or Footballer of the Year 2017. Charlie, yeah. Look, CAF headquarters is located in Cairo. What do you say? BBC, for following the voting, has awarded the African Footballer of the Year to him. He will win African Footballer of the Year by CAF. No two ways. Africa highlights tricked into eating donkeys in SA, China to build new Mozambique airport, and South African officials fear donkey meat is being fed to unsuspecting customers. But the problem China gives Mozambique $60 million grant for airports. Chinese don't give things for free. Ni hao. Ni hao, ni hao. And then we also have Tanzania President pardons child rapists. And ICC warns Jordan over Bashir visits. Returning IS fighters a threat, according to people and governments and agencies warning the African Union. So we have to wrap up for sports. Today I see someone who is new. George, a friend is saying George Adu Jr. is coming to do sports today. Okay, he's been absent with Ali for some time, at least in the mornings. Well, so he'll be here. But please note, we're coming to you live from the digital address 0993341. Please make sure that you go download your app, the Ghana GPS app from App Store. That's for iPhone users. And then the iOS. And then Play Store. Google Play Store. Forgive me, I'm a Infinix crown I'm using. Infinix. I have a request here. Let me do it quickly. So it's your birthday, Mrs. Elizabeth Na Dinswa Tete. You are the manageress of Lizzie Ted Catering Services. You're a senior presbyter of Max Dodu Presbyterian Church, Latebia Okoshi. This one is coming from your children and is led by Auntie Diana Kome of the National Cardiothoracic Center, the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. It's your birthday today. Your cake is on our lead producer who gave me this, Derek Sam. Please don't worry, the cake is coming to you wherever you will be this afternoon. Derek Sam is sponsoring 200 Ghana cedis, I tell you. But George Ado Jr. is right here with the latest sports stories. Stick and stay, we'll be right back.